Thanks and welcome to the 6:15 news with me, Henry Atimbe, and of course we have our top stories. Switzerland has called on the Cameroonian government and separatist fighters to engage in genuine dialogue in order to put an end to the long-standing conflict. The call comes barely a few weeks after the government had denied a statement made by Canada over government's agreement with separatist fighters, and of course coming on the heels of the killing of CDC workers on February 11, 2023. And boon traffickers nabbed in Noon division of the West region of Cameroon. The alleged human traffickers were tracked down in Bafoussam. Those were top stories. Thanks and welcome to join me, Henry Atimbe. Hook up with us on our social media handle, of course, on Facebook and on our YouTube page. Switzerland has expressed dismay with the killing of CDC workers on February 11, 2023, and has called on the Cameroonian government to engage in dialogue with the separatist fighters in order to put an end to the long-standing conflict. The call comes barely a few weeks after government denied a statement made by Canada over government's agreement to discourse on the conflict. Details with Ambo Gladys Diba.
The killing of the 5 workers of the Cameroon Development Corporation, the CDC, in Tico, southwest region of Cameroon on February 11, 2023, attracted international concerns. The Swiss embassy in Yaoundé, in a tweet made public on February 13, called on the Cameroon government and the separatist fighters to embrace dialogue and refrain from violence. The Swiss embassy also urged authorities to hold accountable perpetrators of the act that equally left 44 others severely wounded. It is not the first time the Swiss government is preoccupied with the long-standing crisis in the 2 English-speaking regions of Cameroon. In 2019, it mediated in the crisis, but the talks yielded no fruit when it attempted to relaunch stalled peace talks. In 2022, the Cameroon government reportedly rejected the mediation efforts. Before the last incident on CDC workers, the Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister, Melanie Joly, on January 20, 2023, announced the Cameroon government had agreed to hold talks with separatist groups, but the government denied the statement made by Canada on its mediation.
Well, once more, thanks very much, Ambo Gladys. Coming next, stay with you, Ambo Gladys. It's a very pathetic story of 4 young men in the Noon division of the West region of the Cameroon who have been nabbed after they exhumed the corpse or the remains of their grandmother in order to sell the boons in a black market. The alleged human boon traffickers were nabbed in Bafoussam en route to the black market. Ambo.
The skeletons of the grandmother of these 4 alleged human bone traffickers exposed at the premises of the West Gendarmerie Legion in Cameroon. The young men, thirsty for money, had dug up the remains of their grandmother in order to sell in the black market, but they were arrested following a tip-off. After our investigations, we laid hands on the human bone traffickers who dug up the remains of their grandmother, Madame Yemelis. We want to thank the population for their collaboration for assisting in the arrest of these human bone traffickers. These young men had promised to make available fresh heads of humans to a certain lady if she is in need.
et déterminés à assurer leur protection et leurs biens.
The corpse of the grandmother, who was buried 2 years ago, was exhumed by the human bone traffickers in the non-division.
Je remercie la gendarmerie de Bafoussam.
I thank gendarme officers in Bafoussam who made the effort to seize the corpse of my grandmother. I thank them immensely. We will take the corpse to the village to bury for the second time. She died about 2 years and 6 months ago.
Ça fait 2 ans, 6 mois.
After completing the necessary procedures, the family of the old woman recuperated her remains for another burial. The gendarme officers have called on the population for more vigilance and to report such cases in order to curb the phenomenon in the area.
And over to the southwest region, where 2 children aged 9 and 11 have been accused of witchcraft. In fact, this news was made known by their neighbors as they expressed shock over their activities. Because it was equally very shocking to the aunt of these 2 children. Let's get the details with Ndi Maureen.
Many inhabitants are still in shock and gripped with the fear of the unknown after witnessing what they described as terrifying activities of these children aged between 11 and 9. Accused of witchcraft, the children, mostly students, are reported to be feeding on human flesh. They have confessed to their witch-hunting activities, disclosing they were initiated by their grandfather, who forced them to consume human flesh. It's our grandfather who obliged us and forced us to eat human flesh, that if we don't eat it, he will kill us. We started eating people before our aunt even brought us to our home. He looks for us and appears just anytime. He tells us if we don't do what he says, he will kill us. And that's why we're forced to eat and drink human blood. Neighbors had no option but to call the attention of their aunt. Surprised and shocked by the happenings on the ground, she too confessed she only brought the children to live with her for a period of time, but got trapped by their activities. She is helpless in the face of the situation. I leave my home every morning and only return in the evening, but I had a call by my neighbors who told me there was a problem with the kids. When I returned, I was told again that the children are wizards. They have had the habit of eating people, eating human flesh, and drinking human blood. I'm so shocked and terrified with what I'm hearing today. The children could not explain how they eat the human flesh, and neither did they give the name of the so-called grandfather. This is not the first time the children are being accused of eating human flesh. There have been complaints about them practicing witchcraft in the past.
Oh, sorry, that report, I said southwest, no, but it's coming from the south region of the country. And 5 out of 6 attacks and aggressions and assaults, as well as assaults and all. So over the week, in 1 week, is in the locality of Ebogo, is carried out by men on bike. And so they have decided to identify these bike riders by putting them, of course, jackets. And this has been carried out by the local chiefs around the Yaoundé-Soir route. Details with Beatrice Ngamo.
Here we are at Bechinga Junction along the Yaoundé-Soir road. It is from here that many passengers continue journey to Ebogo and other surrounding villages. The journey not that smooth for many, as 5 to 6 cases of attacks in 1 week, injuries and more, complain from the population. We have lots of attacks in our locality. Need to identify the bike riders of the 2 entrances are real bikers. The cries and fears of the population, what has pushed the local chiefs and officials to resort to this measures. The identification of bike riders with jackets of vests.
As we have gotten this gift, it will permit us to identify ourselves and know how we are working. We got many incidents that people have been taking bags from women, and due to this identification, the passengers are now secured.
The new measure, big relief to most passengers, adding to their feeling while boarding bikes. With this jacket, I can identify, but without, I hesitate. This is my neighborhood, and there are some bikers I know very well. The safety of customers like riders, imperative. The colors help distinguish the different road junctions the bikers operate, and so easy to pick out strangers.
Maintenant, on s'identifie entre nous. À ce moment, nous pouvions identifier qui est motoman de Chinga et qui ne l'est pas.
This is the second junction after Entrée Complex. 45 bikers at Chinga Junction are registered and known by the local chiefs and can be picked out by inhabitants.
Thanks very much, Beatrice Nkamu. Childhood cancer rate has been on the rise of late, caused by late diagnosis in hospitals, and medics have talked to more than 400 diagnosed persons yearly, and they have created an awareness campaign in Douala recently at the Mbinga Baptist Hospital. Details with Morindi.
Cancer in children is a reality and not a myth. Doctors have warned, describing cancer as a leading cause of related diseases in children and adolescents. In Cameroon, the figures are high.
About 300 children can be diagnosed with cancer in this country every year, maybe up to 400. But the challenge is that many of them remain undiagnosed because they don't get to the childhood cancer treatment centers, which the first one is the Fondation Chantal Biya Mother and Child Hospital in Yaoundé, and the second is Mbingo Baptist Hospital.
In this hall at Bingo Baptist Hospital in Douala, medical doctors, nurses and other health practitioners are getting new trends on cancer in children, their role, treatments, survival, and new techniques to roll back the disease. The sensitization and awareness campaign is holding February 15, 2023, which coincides with the International Day Against Childhood Cancer.
Childhood cancers are different from adult cancers. What we are seeing, cancer of the blood, which we call leukemia, is common. At first, we thought that we don't have it, but I think the challenge is that we're not looking for it. When you look for something, you get it. So now that we are beginning to diagnose it, we are seeing an increase in leukemias, that's cancer of the blood. Then we have bucket lymphoma. We have cancer of the eye, we call retinoblastoma, the white spot in the middle of the eye. We have cancer of the kidney, we call nephroblastoma. One side or both of the belly gets swollen.
Medics say for now it's difficult to talk about causes, but it could be prevented if diagnosed earlier.
There is a cause, but it is mostly hereditary, genetic factors which we cannot really prevent. The good news is that childhood cancers are curable if they are diagnosed at an early stage. So early diagnosis is the goal.
Parents have a big role to play in cancer prevention in children.
And Morindi caught up with a survivor, and of course this is what they discussed.
Her smile sees it all. 3-year-old Treasure survived cancer but had to pay with her eyes. Today she's full of life.
They operated my eye. So they operated my eye.
Because of major treatment advances in recent decades, 83% of children with cancer now survive 5 years or more. Survival rates can vary a great deal depending on the type of childhood cancer.
I cannot give you the exact amount, but I would reassure you that the treatment of childhood cancer is not so expensive because the national program is taking it in consideration so that family who have this sort of cases should not remain at home being afraid that they could not have money to treat. So it's not really expensive as people are thinking.
Cameroon can today boast of specialized centers like the Mbingo Baptist Hospital.
We observe something You have seen some, so you can see a mass, you can see abnormality in eyes, and they come to consultation before being informed that that symptom that you are seeing is actually a sign of cancer. The age is between 0 to 19 years. Those are cases that we have received so far in our setting.
Statistics from medics show that very few Cameroonians have embraced the habit of going to hospitals for a complete medical check at least twice a year. An attitude, if applied, will free them of so many diseases, medics have cried out.
And let's move to the Manu land to revisit the roots of the Manu people in a book that has been published by Dr. Eret Agboduku. And of course, Jennifer Saleh took part at the book launch. This is what she came back with.
Honorable Dr. Agboduku Eret has called on the population to revisit their roots and culture through a 218 pages book that consists of 67 poems. Dr. Agboduku hails from Ejiagam, and through this book, Roots Revisited intends to bring out the ancestral culture of the Ejiagams.
What was said about our African and Ejiagam cultures is not true. And Roots Revisited gives the whole man, the complete man, in the human being who is an African, who is an Ejiagam man. Because for you to live without God, like they said, believing that we just had God from yesterday, makes you an empty man.
These 67 poems consist of 3 main themes: love, spirituality, and truth. Though English language is the main medium of expression, he inserts words, phrases, and paragraphs in Ejiagam language in order to pass across the specific message.
It will be very, very beneficial to everybody who had hitherto thought that the African tradition or the Ejiagam tradition, which I am drawing from, did not have any significance because somebody somewhere had said so. The usefulness is enormous.
I'm not excited by numbers. I'm excited by the quality of those who are invited. Those who came are very important people.
Present were important personalities who witnessed this book launch in Douala. It is to be noted that Honorable Dr. Agboduku Eret is a versatile man, as he is adaptable to many activities.
Thanks very much, Sherifa. Now let's swing very fast to the Constitutional Council, where Hyacinth Chua is standing back with updates on the senatorial election. Hello, Hyacinth. Has any list been reinstated?
Good evening. It has been a very long day here at the Constitutional Council in Yaoundé. In total, 13 petitions were received from 6 political parties. As you can see, the SDF, the MDR, the JDC, and equally the UNDP, as well as the CPDM. And of course, the UPC that had the highest number of petitions, 5 in number. And as of now, 8 of the petitions have been successfully examined, and Clement Atangana and his constitutional members, in their usual manner, have thrown out all the petitions for lack of substantial evidence for them to be reinstated. The Social Democratic Front, that was seeking the cancellation of the CPDM list in the northwest region of Cameroon, which is the only region that they are vying for, could not succeed because all that they brought as evidence for the list to be cancelled were not considered valid. And likewise, the young president, André-Marie Dibamo of the JDC, that was struggling for his party to run for seats in the central region. After all the evidence that he brought before the Constitutional Council, nothing could change. Likewise, the UNDP and even the CPDM that was seeking the cancellation of the UNDP list in Adamawa region could not succeed to convince Clement Atangana and his council member. As of now, the examining of the 5 petitions of the UPC is ongoing, and as you all know, all the 5 lists of the UPC were disqualified by Elections Cameroon, and they are now seeking for the list to be reconsidered. But as we all know, the irregularities in the party may not permit anything positive to change as far as that decision is concerned, because it is a party divided into factions, and all the 5 petitions were submitted by different factions. The Constitutional Council, Hyacinthe Chair and Serge Alain Zebu.
Thanks immensely, Hyacinthe Chair, for that update from the Constitutional Council. That brings us to the end of the 6:15 news. We've been Kejang Henry Atimbe, and of course produced by Sheriff Asale and Colin Swonchuang. Tomorrow is another day. Goodbye.